song? You guys want to take solos? We'll hold and record me. We might, well, let's say order of solos. We'll, Marshall, you guys can figure out who goes, but we'll probably have at least 2 solos on each one.
I'm trying to bring you back in, everyone. Come take your seats. Please stand as you're able for this last hymn, They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Love.
and it's in your bulletin on the last page.
We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. And we pray that all unity may one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love. By our love, yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. We will work with each other. We will work side by side. We will work with each other. We will work side by side. And we'll guard each one's dignity with whom we abide. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. All praise to the Father, from whom all things come, and all praise to Christ Jesus, His only Son, and all praise to the Spirit who makes us one. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love.
Verse 1.
We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. And we pray that our unity may one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love.
We're going to begin. And I have the pleasure of calling upon Ms. Dwillard, who is beginning her service as head teller, to present the teller's report on the first ballot. There she is, Dio.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have the report of the, fortunately, first and only ballot we will need today. I told Steve Dean it's downhill from here. You ready?
Okay. Listen up, everyone.
Ballot for clerical member of standing committee, 2 to be elected. John Harmon, needed to be elected 60 clergy votes, 67 lay votes. John Harmon, clergy votes 75, lay votes 94, total 169. Beth O'Callahan, total clergy 67, total lay 82, total 149. Andrew Olivo, total clergy 63, total lay 50, total 113. William Stafford Whitaker, total clergy 33, total lay 41, total 74. John Harmon and Beth O'Callahan are elected. Ballot for lay member of standing committee, 2 to be elected. Needed to win 58 clergy, 65 lay. Roy Peterson, total clergy 60, total lay votes 61, total 121. Joe Ricks, total clergy 84, total lay 99, total votes 183. Anton Vanterpool, total clergy 85, total lay 98, total 183. So Joe Ricks and Anton Vanterpool are elected. Ballot for clerical alternate deputy to General Convention, 4 to be elected. Clergy majority needed 55, lay majority needed 60. Rosemarie Duncan, total clergy 103, total lay 94, total votes 197. Gail Fisher Stewart, total clergy 82, total lay 85, total votes 167. Glenna Huber, total clergy 80, total lay 90, total votes 170. Sheila McJilton, total clergy 84, total lay 87, total votes 171. Henry McQueen, total clergy 54, total lay 70, total votes 124. Cricket Park, total clergy 33, total lay 53, total votes 86. So in order, our alternate deputies are Rosemarie Duncan, Sheila McJilton, Glenna Huber, and Gail Fisher Stewart. And finally, lay alternate deputy to General Convention. Clergy majority needed 51, lay majority needed 62. Fernando Hermosa, total clergy 101, total lay 125, total votes 226. Enid Lagues, total clergy 103, total lay 118, total votes 221. Tony Schooler, total clergy 99, total lay 120, total votes 219. Matthew Taylor, total clergy 101, total lay 126, total votes 227. So alternate deputies in order of election: Matthew Taylor, Fernando Hermosa, Enid Lagues, and Tony Schooler.
I want to congratulate all those who were elected, and to thank all those who had willingness and open heart, wholehearted willingness to serve. Please know that your gifts for ministry are cherished, and we hope that you will stay connected to us and serve in other ways. But we are also very happy and thrilled for those who have been elected, and look forward to working alongside you. I'm going to take a moment just of a bit of privilege here and tell you about someone who I have truly admired in ministry from one of the other traditions of Christianity, very close to ours, the Methodist Church, a pastor by the name of Adam Hamilton, whose church in Kansas City is a real inspiration, and as is his leadership. And he's also a very prolific author, and from his sermons often come books that then become study guides for congregations around the country, often for both an adult curriculum, youth, and children. And one of those offerings is about to become public, and he approached us to see if we might be a site for part of his book tour. And so I'd like to introduce to you via this video Adam Hamilton and have him invite you personally to an event here at the Cathedral in March.
Hi, my name is Adam Hamilton. I'm the senior pastor of the United Methodist Church of the Resurrection in the Kansas City area, and I'm the author of the upcoming book, Unafraid, Living with Courage and Hope in Uncertain Times. I'm excited to be joining you in Washington, D.C. at the National Cathedral on March 12th. That's the national launch of this book. And we're going to talk together about our universal struggle with fears, some of the top fears that we wrestle with as human beings, and how we can face our fears, even press through them, and live with courage and hope. The book was written based upon seeing how fear-ridden our culture is right now, and my experience as a senior pastor of a large congregation, watching the role that fear plays in the lives of my congregation members. I surveyed the congregation at the Church of the Resurrection to find out what their top fears were. I studied researchers in the field of fear, as well as therapists who help people overcome their fears. In the book, I explore the top fears we face as human beings. I offer dozens of examples of people wrestling with fear, then review what experts, scientists, sociologists, and therapists have to say about how we can overcome our fears. In each chapter, I also look at how Christian faith plays a key role in living with courage and hope. One of the two most frequently given commands in Scripture, just after the call to do justice, is do not be afraid. And almost always it's followed by these words, for I am with you. The people in the biblical time were afraid. We face fear today. And I think the word from God for them is the same as for us. Don't be afraid, I'm with you. We're not meant to live in fear, but with courage. I'd like to invite you to join me for an informative, helpful, and inspirational evening exploring some of the keys to being unafraid, living with courage and hope in uncertain times. I hope to see you on March 12th at the Washington National Cathedral.
Undoubtedly, you've heard of Oprah's book club. You know about the New York Times bestseller. But now...
Sorry, he's coming later. As the video described, Adam is coming here as part of his book tour, and so this is a ticketed event. The cost is $30. It includes a copy of the book, and I will set aside $1,000 of the bishop's discretionary fund for any lay leader that would like to come to this gathering and then perhaps be a part of spreading that conversation in your congregations. And so know that is available to you. And I'm also a real softie for my clergy colleagues too, just saying. So if you're short on cash, I will help make that possible. Moving on. Many of you have been following avidly the progress and the miracles that happen all the time at the Bishop Walker School, and you may have read in the last of our bulletins how we highlighted the relocation of the Bishop Walker School to the campus of Town Hall Education, Arts, Recreation, and Cultural. That's the ARC for short, which is a campus east of the Anacostia River. It's an exciting and a huge accomplishment. In addition, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Bishop Walker School. which is a remarkable and happy milestone in the life of the ministry of this diocese. I am honored at this time to call upon James Woody, Executive Director of the Bishop Walker School, and David Shepard, the Director of Development, to address us. Oh, it's Peter Lee.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am indeed James Woody, but this is Peter Lee, who is the chair of our governing board. So thank you for being here with us, Peter. Thank you, Bishop Marianne and the leadership of the diocese for this opportunity to just give you a very brief update on the work of the Bishop Walker School. I was really struck by something that Bishop Marianne said earlier about these loaves and fishes miracles. The Bishop Walker School was launched in 2008 in the midst of the great financial crisis in response to an educational crisis that was disproportionately impacting the lives and futures of boys living in traditionally underserved communities east of the Anacostia River. I'd like to think that the Bishop Walker School was really born at the intersection of heroism and these loaves and fishes miracle stories. Think about this. September of 2008, for those of you that can remember the fear and loathing that was apparent in our society because of some of the financial issues that were going on. Yet there was a group of people here in this diocese representing many of the parishes that are here today who decided that despite the economic conditions, it was the right time to do something for someone else. If you ever see heroes that are interviewed after they've done something courageous, they typically say the same thing. Oh, it was nothing. I'm not a hero. That's what anybody would do under the circumstances. But the reality is, not everybody did what the Diocese of Washington did in 2008. In fact, nobody else did it. Nobody else stood up and said, we're going to start a tuition-free school for boys from families who could not afford a private school education, in this case an Episcopal school education. That's an act of heroism. So for those that were a part of that bold and courageous act, I applaud you and thank all of you for your continued support over the last 10 years. We have entered into our 10th year of operation and we're serving just over 80 boys in grades K through 6. These boys are with us about 10 and a half hours every day, Monday through Friday. We serve them 3 meals a day. We provide an academically challenging environment and an experientially rich environment. We do lots of field trips. We use the city as our classroom. One of our favorite field trip locations is this grand space that we're in today. We want to make sure that our students know that the cathedral is their cathedral. As I think back on the early days, and I've again had the privilege of being associated with the Bishop Walker School since the beginning, I'd just like to highlight a couple of heroes amongst this group today. St. Philip's Church in Anacostia. When we were looking for a place to start the school, we used the Undercroft, the social hall at St. Philip's. And that was a very bold thing for them to do. Nobody knew whether or not the Bishop Walker School was going to work or last or whatever, but they said, look, we believe in what you're doing, we want to be a part of it. And so from the very beginning, St. Philip's was there for us. And then after we outgrew the space at St. Philip's, we moved into the Church of the Holy Communion in Congress Heights. Another example of a parish that may not have had a lot in the way of resources, but they had an awful lot in the way of faith and belief in the mission of the Bishop Walker School. So we undertook a major renovation of that space, and we are still so proud of what we were able to accomplish there. As Bishop Marianne said, now we have relocated into this brand new space, 30,000 square feet on the campus of the Ark. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Ark, let me just give you a sense of what that means to the Bishop Walker School. The Ark is a 17-acre campus in Southeast Washington on Mississippi Avenue. There are about 14 different nonprofit organizations that are housed on that campus, including the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Washington, the Washington Ballet, the Washington School for Girls, Children's National Medical Center, Levine Music. So there are a number of opportunities for our boys to participate in some very culturally enriching and academically stimulating activities at very little cost to the Bishop Walker School. So it's an opportunity for us to, for example, have access to a gymnasium that we didn't have to build. It's an opportunity for our boys to get quality health care from Children's National Medical Center at no cost to the Bishop Walker School, and in many cases at no cost to their families. So we have really been very fortunate over the years to have so many in our community surround us with love, support, and generosity that's enabled us to build from one pre-K class in 2008 now to 6th grades that are being served at a high level thanks to the generosity of all of you. So this opportunity is really just one where we wanted to come to you and say thank you for what you're doing, and Peter is going to share with you some of the other roles that you've played and can play in the life of the Bishop Walker School. So thank you so much.
I was actually hesitant to appear before you today in person because when letters go out in my name from the Bishop Walker School, many people assume I was the former Bishop of Virginia and get a lot of response as a result of that. Just a few words on the ministry of the Bishop Walker School. And first I'll say, one of the attractions that I had to it was that it was named after Bishop John T. Walker, who was an influence in my life as a boy, and I think is still a very beloved and important figure in this diocese. For me, the ministry is about not that the boys are Episcopalian. That's not why we serve them. It's because we are Episcopalian, and that's why we serve them. We are a diocesan school. We are not a separate entity from the diocese. We are a ministry. And so from that perspective, what that means is that we are your school. And so every parish in this diocese has a school affiliated with it. We are that school. And our charge, though, from the diocese is to be self-sufficient financially to the extent that we can. And what that means, and as Bishop Marian indicated in her address, is that we depend on the broad support of the diocese to do that. And we've been very successful, and as James indicated, even from the very beginning, we had a lot of parish support, and that's only increased over time. Our hope is that all parishes will be able to embrace the Bishop Walker School in a manner that works for them. And if you're not familiar with the school, we love nothing more, James loves nothing more than giving you a tour. And we are very much sincere in saying that come visit our table and get our contact information and come down to the school. And I think when you come down to the school, you see why those who are here who are involved with the school are so passionate about it. And James is also equally, and I'm volunteering him for various and sundry things, he's equally happy to come to your parish and speak at a forum if that is of interest. And we want the wider community to know about the work that we're doing. So thank you for allowing us to talk about our passion to you today, and thank you for remembering the Bishop Walker School.
Two quick announcements before we proceed. When we read the names of the congregations that tithed to the diocese in 2017, we may have missed Grace Church in Georgetown. We mentioned All Souls, Christ Church, Georgetown, Christ Church, Washington Parish, St. Barnabas Church of the Deaf, and St. Philip's Laurel. We don't want to leave out Grace Church in Georgetown. Thank you all. And second, Franklin Malone, if you are here, if you could come forward and meet with the Chancellor over in the South Transept. She has a question on the amendment you submitted. Thank you.
While we're doing announcements, Sheila McGiltern from St. Philip's told me that she has a paper folder for a church in Southern Maryland whose name she cannot remember. And so if that sounds familiar to you, I know for a fact that Sheila will be standing at the end of this convention in the front here with other members of the standing committee. Oh, I see someone who, where's Sheila? Oh, there she is. Okay, we have made a match. Moving on. I now call upon Keith Rochford, Secretary of the Convention, to bring to your attention matters relating to actions of the General Convention of the Episcopal Church.
Under the canons of the General Convention of the Episcopal Church, I'm required to make known the adoption at General Convention in 2015, the passage of several amendments to the Constitution of the General Convention. The text of these amendments may be found on page 89 of your convention booklet. No action by this convention is required. These amendments will come before General Convention in 2018 for final adoption. I commend these amendments to your careful study. If you have any questions or concerns, you should make known to the members of the General Convention deputation. Thank you.
I move now to the report from the Cathedral Task Force. Reminding this convention that last year, following the convention of last year, as promised in my convention address, the diocese and the cathedral established a joint task force to explore the various national, local, and international dimensions of the mission and ministry of the cathedral. I'm pleased to call on co-chairs of that task force, the Reverend Harvey Bale and Mr. Jerry Perez, for an update concerning the work of the task force.
Thank you. I'm Jerry Perez, and Reverend Bale is behind me, and we're pleased to report to you today about the work of the Cathedral Task Force. Please note that our work is ongoing. This is not a final report, but it is an interim one, and it is an effort for us to share what we've done so far. It is in draft form, and please take it with that in mind. We're really trying to address, I think, 4 sets of questions, which I think might be informative to you. What is the Cathedral Task Force? What have we been doing? What have we found out? What has been our learning? And what's next? Okay, so with that in mind, Reverend Bale.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, the task force last year was set up after the convention in January by Bishop Buddy and by Dean Hollerith. And we formed ourselves around March, April, got really going in April. And we have a year to complete our work. We're going to finish our work and issue the final report in April of this year. We have a multi-talented and multi-sourced task force. Besides Jerry and myself, we have the Reverend Andrew Walker, Ann Dursey, Pastor and Professor James Wynn, Jim Wynn, John Johnson, Martha Horn, the Reverend Michelle Hagans, also the Reverend Martha Horn, Paul Brown, Dr. Rick Elgandy, Tom Wolfe, and Vince Napoleon. A group of lay people, a group of clergy, a few of us from the cathedral, and others from around the diocese. So what have we been doing? We organized ourselves into 3 subgroups. One group is looking at the history of the cathedral and the way it was established from the Charter of 1893 through today, and the way it evolved within the diocese and the way it evolved in our national, political, and public life. We also have a public life and local life task force, which is looking at the way the cathedral has been working and recommendations as to how the cathedral should move forward in our nation's public theology and issues that are gospel-driven, and the concerns that we also have about our role in the local DC community. And Jerry's going to have a couple words about that in a few minutes. The final group of issues relate to diocesan relations. the way the cathedral has or has not related well to the parishes in the diocese and supported the diocese and vice versa. Again, we began our work, started convening in April. We've been meeting practically continuously. I think I get emails every day from other task force members, and I think, Jerry, you would share that view. I think it's pretty regular because we're working at the subgroup level, and now we're starting to come together at the task force level to begin drafting. We've had input from over 200 persons, 35 individual interviews, and we still have about a half a dozen interviews to undertake. We've had a couple dozen email and written responses. We also had listening sessions in the southern part of our diocese, the northern part of our diocese, and here in the central part at the cathedral a couple months ago. We also had a large group of volunteers from the National Cathedral, docents, ushers, and others, altar guild people, who came on a cold day and gave us a lot of input with regard to their views about the various issues relating to the diocese. And we also had Dean Hollerith visited up on Capitol Hill. There were a number of people that were organized through the Government Relations Office of the diocese to meet with a number of people who work on the Hill. So, Jerry, with that, I think, why don't you give a group of findings?
Okay, so what have we found? We found that there are some remarkable strengths associated with the Washington National Cathedral. There is tremendous goodwill in the community towards the cathedral. The cathedral and its missions are held in high esteem. Folks have said that the work of the cathedral, the place of the cathedral, is unique in the Washington area, and only the National Cathedral could endeavor to do the work that it does. We found that there is a yearning for spiritual and moral leadership, and that the Washington National Cathedral is perceived to be a fair and prophetic voice. The National Cathedral is seen to be a unique place of convening, of discussion, and of reconciliation. Washington National Cathedral has a historic role as a national and spiritual center, a place for national funerals, inaugural services, services of mourning and reconciliation, and there continues to be overwhelming support for that to continue. Those are the strengths of this place, but we also have uncovered challenges. Certainly, the identity and mission of the cathedral has evolved over time, and as such, today its identity is unclear and confusing to many. Efforts and activities of the cathedral are diverse and diffused, and sometimes not as effective as can be. They're perceived to be reactive to current events rather than leading. More can be done by the cathedral in our local communities. The Cathedral Scholars Program is held out as an example of some of the most important and visible work in the local DC area, but more can be done, and there again is a yearning for more activity. More than one person has said this was a great opportunity to come down from the Hill and into the community of Washington, D.C. Our documents talk about the cathedral as a church of all people, as a chief mission church of the diocese, as a seated presiding bishop. Those roles are misunderstood, misperceived. We're not perceived as a church for all people as much as we would like to be. And the chief mission church of the diocese is a confusing and misdirected identity. And finally, we're not really seen as national in all senses of the word. There does not exist a current national support structure, and there is a certain yearning for such to be in order to support the cathedral. So those are a bit of our findings. What's next? Our report will be is in draft stage right now. We're coalescing the many inputs we've received. Certainly, those findings will be more fully fleshed out, and will lead to recommendations. Our objective is to complete that drafting work by the end of March and have drafts to the dean and to the bishop in early April. Again, our objective is to have a final report to the diocesan council, the dean, the bishop, the chapter, the standing committee, and to the national church by the end of April. In the meantime, any concerns, any questions, feel free to call myself or Harvey for input. We value and welcome your input, and we'll seek to answer any questions that you might have. So, look forward to our report in the next 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you to you both and to all the members of the task force. I'd like to move now to the report of the Resolutions Committee, calling on Mr. Clark Downs to present the first segment of the report of the Resolutions Committee, which is found on page 93 of your convention booklet.
Jerry, these yours? Good afternoon. I'm Clark Downs. It's been my privilege to chair the Resolutions Committee. The committee was presented with 3 separate resolutions. I'm pleased to say they were all submitted in a timely way, giving us adequate time to review them and work with their sponsors. The 3 resolutions are listed in your table of contents. The first one is on becoming a sanctuary diocese, offering sacred welcome to immigrants. That is found on page 93. Do you want to take this one at a time?
We'll take them one at a time.
It's in good shape and ready for your consideration.
I'd like to allow the Chancellor, Mary Costel, to say a few words to us.
I just want to remind you that our rules of order provide that the first member to speak on a resolution will be the primary sponsor or the agreed upon designee. No one may speak more than twice in the same debate or longer than 3 minutes at one time, except that the primary sponsor or designee may speak for up to 5 minutes the first time and then 3 minutes the second time. If you do wish to speak a second time, please wait until others have had a chance at the mic. Note that any amendment to a resolution must be reduced to writing and turned into the secretary right over here. There's an amendment form behind each resolution on a page following the text of the resolution. It's in your convention booklet. Write out your amendment and turn it in so that it can be typed up and displayed on the screen. Thanks.
Thank you. My understanding is that the Reverend Joseph Constant is going to speak on behalf, and there he is on the front microphone.
Bishop Marian, fellow lay and clergy delegates, good afternoon. My name is Joseph Constant. I am currently director of St. John's Church in Bellsville, Maryland. I'm also founder and president of the Haiti Micah Project, which addresses the needs of homeless and street children in Haiti. I'm originally from Haiti, but I've been living in the United States for over 30 years. I am a naturalized American citizen, and I have lived the immigrant story and have witnessed firsthand the impacts of law and public policy on vulnerable immigrants and their families. Along with my colleagues whose names appear on the resolution, I stand before you asking for your support of this resolution, creating places of sanctuary within the Episcopal Diocese of Washington and its congregations. Our institutions should be a place that offers sacred welcome to immigrants. Your support of this resolution will send a message to our brothers and sisters living in fear of deportation that we stand with them. It also sends a public message that the Diocese of Washington of the Episcopal Church abhors the current discriminatory policies toward immigrants by many of our political institutions. Why is this resolution important in this time? So many of our brothers and sisters are living in fear, and our young people are anxious about their future. The church is well positioned to serve as places of welcome, love, compassion, and healing. We can provide material support and resources to all persons, regardless of their immigration status. The recent actions by this administration to phase out DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and terminate the TPS, which is the Temporary Protected Status Program, have left families, friends, and church members fearful. I stand before you today asking for your support of this resolution for people like my father, who was an undocumented immigrant in this country for many years. But eventually my father obtained his citizenship. His path to citizenship made it possible for me to stand before you today. And it allows me to engage in life-changing ministries, not only in this country, but also in Haiti. My father came to this country in 1974. He left Haiti with a single objective of providing for his family. I remember the many conversations I had with my father and the fears he had for his many years in this country as an undocumented immigrant. My father cared deeply for his family. He came alone to this country searching for a better life for us. He overstayed his tourist visa, not because he wanted to break the laws of this nation, but because he wanted to give us a chance, to allow his 3 sons an opportunity for education and employment. For many years, my father worked 2 jobs while trying to get an education. My father lived in constant fear. One night, he was driving his cab, and a group of young men robbed him and beat him senselessly. But he couldn't go to the authorities out of fear of being arrested and deported. The one place that my father felt safe and accepted was at an Episcopal church in Boston, Massachusetts, which welcomed him. My father was very involved in what became my church, organizing what came to be known as the Haitian Outreach Ministry. My father found a way to become legal in this country and eventually applied for my 2 brothers and me to travel lawfully to the United States. I knew what my father went through and the sacrifices he made so that I can be in this country legally and obtain an education. With that knowledge, I know I need to give back, not only to my adopted country, but also to my country of birth. I too worked hard to get an education and returned to graduate school, attending Virginia Theological Seminary to become a priest in the Episcopal Church. In seminary, I was inspired by the prophet Micah. In Micah chapter 6, verse 8, the prophet Micah begs the question of what the Lord requires of us, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. Once this resolution is approved, the next step will include creating a sanctuary committee at the diocesan level to guide our congregation forward. This committee will be multicultural and will include representatives from key groups and ministries in the diocese and the larger church. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Constant. We now need a second for the resolution. I hear a second, thank you. And I see a speaker in the microphone in the back.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And thanks God for giving us the opportunity to work in this community to make this diocese a better place for all of us. My name is Edwin Franklin Lemus. I am 27 years old. I have been a member of St. Matthew's, San Mateo for about 12 years. I am a member of the vestry of St. Matthew's. I am a delegate at this convention, and I am also a diocesan council member and a co-sponsor of this resolution. I am from Guatemala, and I came to this country when I was 15 years old, not knowing the language, and I had no vision. I had not other than to make money and go back to my country. I faced a reality that in this country you need to be educated before you can obtain a good job. I didn't want to go to school, but my mother and my uncle forced me to go to school, and one day I finally agreed to go to high school. And I went from a straight E's in 9th grade to a straight A's in 11th grade. I graduated in 2009 from high school, and I still had no vision. One day before my graduation, one of my professors advised me to apply for a scholarship for Latino students, and I won it. When I went to college, I was paying as an out-of-country, out-of-state, and as an out-of-county student, but I kept going, one class at a time, until DACA came along. DACA was approved, and that is when I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. DACA gave me a name, gave me confidence, and millions of dreams. I graduated from college as a construction manager in 2014. I became a business owner, and I became a homeowner. And I live in Hyattsville, and I always have lived there, a place that I made my home. I have always attended an Episcopal church. Before it was called San Miguel, now it's called St. Matthew, San Mateo. If DACA legislation is not passed, all I have done is I will waste all my accomplishments, all the sacrifices I have made to become someone in this country will be gone. I will have to give up my house, I will have to give up my dreams, and I will have to give up my business. And the most hard thing, I will be facing deportation. Thanks God we have a great leader at St. Matthew's, Father Vidal Rivas. He has mentored me and our entire community by using the Word of God to give us hope that one day people who don't support us will understand that the Word of God says that we must love each other. I believe it is important for the diocese to pass this resolution because it shows our brothers and sisters that we are one church, that we help those in need, and that we are humans with a big heart, and that we practice the Word of God. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the front microphone next. Yes, ma'am, that's you.
Joyce Bryant.
A little louder, please, Ms.
Joyce Bryant, Christchurch, Rockville. I just have a question, and I'd like a documentation of this phrase that is including veterans who have served honorably in the United States military.
Yes.
Where did you put that as potential deportees? How was that acquired? How was that information acquired?
Hello, yes, I'm sorry. So, are you directing a question to the sponsor of the legislation?
I don't know to whom it should be addressed, but working where I do and being associated with the military as I am, I just like documentation of where that statement came from.
Well, then the most helpful thing you could do is work that out with the sponsor or propose an amendment that could clarify your question. Thank you.
Sponsor is sitting right there in the front row if you'd like to talk with him. I'd like to go to the back microphone now.
I am Father Vidal Rivas. I am from El Salvador. I am working in San Mateo. Voy a hablar en español y va a traducir Padre Richard.
I'm going to translate for him.
Esta diócesis es una diócesis compuesta por todos los inmigrantes de distintos países del mundo.
This diocese is made up of people from all different countries and from all around the world.
Pero los inmigrantes que necesitan el apoyo de nuestra iglesia son de algunos países de Asia, de África y de América Latina.
But the immigrants in this diocese who need our support are from Asia, from Africa, and from Latin America.
Yo quiero invitar a cada uno de nosotros que creemos en Jesucristo y que vivimos el Evangelio, que seamos una iglesia del buen pastor.
I would like to ask all of us who are followers of Jesus Christ and members of this diocese to be people of the Good Shepherd.
Que seamos la iglesia del buen samaritano, que apoya, que socorre como Abraham cuando fue hospitalario. Asimismo nosotros apoyemos a nuestros inmigrantes.
And following in the tradition of the Good Samaritan and of Abraham, who provided hospitality to angels, that we do the same to the immigrants in our community.
Si queremos ser la iglesia de Cristo, no solamente tengamos nuestros templos para orar.
If we want to be the Church of Christ, our spaces, our physical buildings cannot just be a place to pray,
sino que nuestros templos sean la casa de Dios y la casa de todos nosotros que somos los hijos y las hijas de Dios.
But our temples should be places where all are welcome to pray and be beloved children of God.
Que seamos una iglesia compasiva, llena de justicia, de solidaridad y de amor.
We need to be a compassionate church, a church that stands in solidarity, and a church of love.
Agradecemos a nuestra obispa, a todo el personal de la diócesis y a cada uno de ustedes que tienen un corazón lleno de amor para apoyarnos.
We would like to thank our bishop and all members of this diocese for your support, and we hope that this resolution passes.
Que Dios bendiga a todos y que sus corazones estén llenos de amor.
May God bless all of you, and may your hearts be full of love.
Thank you. Back microphone.
Thank you, Bishop. My name is Peter Jared Schell. I am the pastor of Calvary Episcopal Church. I stand to offer an amendment which has been submitted in writing. I do hope that the sponsors of the resolution will consider it a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Do we have the words of the amendment, amendment to the resolution?
In brief, yep, that's it.
Just a second. Excuse me, Peter.
Yep.
There we go. I got it. So the first step in offering an amendment is just to explain what the amendment is without stating any substance in support of it.
Sure.
So can folks see this? Is it legible? So if you would go ahead and explain
Sure.
what you're offering to strike out and replace, that would be helpful.
I also notice it's slightly different than what I had submitted in writing, but the as submitted in writing, it says, as disciples of Jesus Christ and persons of faith and conscience, we take seriously the biblical mandate to honor the immigrant in our midst as one of our own, with a citation from Leviticus 19:34.
Okay, let's take a pause and let's fix that. Can we fix that quickly? We've got to get the text right.
Immigrant, just if you can submit after immigrant the word in our midst. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Without the comma, I think.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I have terrible handwriting. Thank you.
Is that a faithful
The immigrant in our midst. Yes, that's correct.
reflection of your proposed amendment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So that's the substance of the proposed amendment, correct?
Correct.
Now we need to hear if there's a second.
I hear a second. Please continue.
Yes, please continue.
In brief, when our congregation considered the resolutions before the convention at our pre-convention meeting, the members of Calvary Episcopal Church were strongly in favor of this resolution, but immediately felt that the word alien carries currently a negative connotation of otherness, and they requested that we replace it with the word immigrant. In doing so, we have carried the specific scriptural citation from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 34, to which the resolution alludes. We believe this resolution, one, provides strong scriptural basis, holds closely to Jesus' summary of the law that we should love our neighbor as ourselves, and has scriptural basis in that the word translated often as alien is the Hebrew word gar, which refers to one who sojourns or resides, and so can be properly rendered as immigrant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I need to stand for any question about that?
Is there any other discussion of the amendment, of the proposed amendment?
We are now voting only on the proposed amendment. If you are in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you are opposed, your hands, please. The amendment to the resolution carries. And so now we're back to the resolution itself as it's been amended. I'm not seeing anyone else come to the microphones. And, well, I spoke too soon. We'll start with the back microphone, please. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craniff Jones, and I'm here as a delegate for St. John's only. And we're amending the same line that the gentleman before me just did. We are going to be striking, I move to amend that we strike the word the.
Excuse me, do we have this in writing from you?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Can we put that up on the screen? Okay, we're working on it.
It's the same line, so it affects the same line, so
Right.
it's going to be a little while.
Okay, is your proposal on the screen now?
It is.
Okay, would you describe it to us?
Certainly. We're proposing that we strike the word the on line 3, associated with line 3, and also on line 4 of the phrase of the incumbent executive branch.
Okay.
And we make this proposal because if it's our policy regardless of who's trying to impose the rule.
Let's see if we have a second to that proposed amendment.
I see a second.
Okay, now would you like to speak to it?
Yes, like I was saying, it's, if we're adopting this as our policy, it is our policy regardless of who's trying to impose the rule. So it shouldn't matter if it's an executive branch or a judicial branch or whoever. So it's irrelevant pretty much.
Okay. Does anyone else have a desire to speak to this particular amendment, proposed amendment? Sir?
Madam President, my name is Tim Whittig from St. John's in Olney.
Yes.
I speak in favor of this amendment for several reasons. First, I'd like to take a little bit of toxicity out of the statement. As I came to this convention this morning, I thought about how I should consider the things laid before us all. And I thought I should try to think about the greater church and say to myself, how would one of my brothers in St. John's in South Dakota or Kansas, how would that parishioner feel about this statement? When, remember, we really want people to understand what this means and to undertake it. And so I thought that Ms. Jones had the right idea to say, let's try to make this as broadly acceptable as we can to as many people as we can. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there others who wish to speak to this amendment to the resolution? If you are in favor of the amendment to the resolution, would you please raise your hands? Thank you. If you are opposed, please raise your hands. Thank you. The amendment to the resolution carries. We are now back to the original resolution as it has been twice amended. I think it's pretty clear how it's been amended, but does anyone need it read? Okay. Are you ready to vote on the original, now amended resolution? If you are in favor, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. If you are opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. The resolution carries. I'd like to call the Cathedral Band up. Andy, if you could lead us in a song, I think we could use a stretch. How about standing up and singing? Whoops. Sorry, it's too late. We're gonna do it anyway. No, Andy, we're gonna sing. We'll sing again. 379. God is love. Let heaven adore him. Let's stand. Thank you. Continuing. Mr. Clark.
The second resolution presented for your consideration relates to the inclusion of transgender people in the lives of our churches. It too is clear in its expression and in order for your consideration.
Thank you. And is there an author of the resolution ready to speak to it? Back microphone.
Alex Dyer, St. Thomas's Parish, D.C. I'm going to keep it brief because I love you all dearly, but I'd also love to get home. So we're going to keep this kind of brief. I'll just begin with a story from one of my seminary professors. He tells a great story of when he went to do a consultation with a parish, and the parish said it was about building a handicap ramp, and they said, "We don't need to build a handicap ramp. We don't have any handicapped people." Stop and think about that statement. I think sometimes we send implicit messages to our transgender brothers and sisters without even knowing it. And many think that churches are not welcoming to them, and in many cases, unfortunately, they would be right. So this resolution asks us to do the hard work of looking at our own self, of looking how welcoming we are to transgender people. This could be, and I think is, one of the social justice issues that we are called to wrestle with here in our time. So I just want to highlight a few things before hopefully is a short discussion on this resolution, because after all, it does really just call us to do our own work. And in the third resolved, I just want to say it encourage all parishioners. There is no mandate to do things from this. It just encourages us, and was purposely worded that way, realizing that we have a very diverse diocese with a lot of different contexts. But in certain areas, I think we are called to do the work in this area, and hopefully this resolution will give us the encouragement that we need in order to tackle this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? I hear a second. And so now the resolution is on the floor for discussion. If anyone would like to speak in favor or in opposition to it. Right. Do you believe the Reverend Dyer got his wish? If you are in favor of the resolution, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. If you are in opposition, please raise your hand. The resolution carries. So we will move on now to the third and final resolution.
The third resolution relates to the use of gendered language to refer to God, and relates to the revision of the Book of Common Prayer that is now being considered by the National Church. It too is clear in its expression and ready for your consideration.
Again, I'm looking for someone who is an author of the resolution to speak to it first.
Does lightning strike twice? We shall see.
Again, you are?
I'm Alex Dyer, St. Thomas's Parish. This resolution, again, as stated, is, as we know, many people know, we're in the revision of a new prayer book. Many of us adapt the current prayer book in many ways, using gender-inclusive language, most often in the Creed or in the Eucharistic prayer. And all the two conventions I've been to, we have adapted more gender-friendly language. So what this does is encourage the Standing Committee, Commission on Liturgy and Music, to consider revision of the prayer book And again, pay attention to the language. It says, when possible, all gendered references, and to replace gender-neutral language if necessary, alternate between titles. So again, this is encouraging. I'm convinced that the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music will do whatever they choose to do, but this is in line with some other dioceses across the country who have submitted similar resolutions. Again, echoing back to the sermon that we heard today, many of us like to hold on to certain things and have certain idols, and language may be one of them. So while this may not fit you and your own personal piety, it may fit a world that is changing and is looking at gender in different ways. So I submit this resolution for your consideration, again, hoping maybe that we can get out of here in a reasonable time.
Thank you. I'm waiting now for a second. Second. Thank you. Hearing that, we may move to discussion. Back microphone, please.
Linda Calkins, St. Bartholomew's, Laytonsville, Maryland. I hold in my hand a Bible called the Inclusive Bible, put out by an organization from the Roman Catholic Church, Priests for Equality. This has been around for well over 20 years. My question is, when is the Episcopal Church going to join up with it? I'd like to read a passage for just a moment, if I might. This is from Genesis, chapter 17, where God comes before Abraham, and Abraham falls on his face. I'll just read it from this Bible. When Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to him and said, we usually translated it either as El Shaddai, or God of the mountains. If we are going to be true to what El Shaddai it means God with breasts. So in this translation, it says, and God said, I am the breasted one. My presence and my holiness is with you. Having studied much feminist theology in my master's degrees, I wrote a thesis on liberation and freedom and non-equality in feminist theology and existential counseling. And I'm still waiting for the Episcopal Church to come to the place where all people feel that they can speak God's name. Many, many women that I have spoken with over my past almost 20 years in ordained ministry have felt that they could not be a part of any church because of the male image of God that is systemic and is sustained throughout our liturgies. And I simply want to thank those who have presented this resolution and say many of us are waiting and need to hear God in our language, in our words, and in our pronouns. Thank you.
To the front microphone.
Sean Strout, clergy delegate from St. Paul's in Washington, D.C. I have proposed an amendment to the resolution.
Okay. Just a second, please. The Chancellor is looking for a written copy. Just one moment.
So is it's accurate on the screen? Yes, okay, so we need a second before we can debate it.
I see a second.
Okay, so would you like to speak to that?
So I believe that the spirit of this resolution is quite laudable, but its language is vague and offers two problems.
You need to
First
speak a
of
little
all,
louder.
the first problem is that it presumes that revision of the prayer book is going to occur, which is not at all the case. And General Convention needs to vote on that, and will be a very big debate. So the first part of the amendment is that if it is authorized, removing that provision. The second problem with it is the bigger problem. By stating it will eliminate all gendered references to God, we would be asking the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music to remove everything from the Lord's Prayer to the beautiful feminine imagery found in enriching our worship. That language is too vague and therefore could be interpreted too broadly. So what I am proposing here is a bit more specific, to utilize expansive language for God from the richest sources of feminine, masculine, and non-binary imagery for God found in scripture and tradition, and, when possible, to avoid the use of gendered pronouns for God, which is really what the authors, I think, intended based on their explanation. They talked a lot about pronouns, but the language is very non-specific.
Does anyone wish to speak to the amendment that's on the floor? Back microphone, you do?
I'm speaking to the amendment, but I'm opposing the amendment.
Okay, and you are?
Madam President, I'm Franklin Malone, representative from Our Savior Episcopal Church, Brooklyn. And I did have a resolution, an amendment, but it could not be accepted. What I wanted to point out was the Book of Common Prayer was written with the inspiration of God. No one can refute that is a magnificent compilation of prayers. However, in changing this book, we need to look at ourselves, the brotherhood of mankind, the different diversity that represents this room. And I would recommend that we need to have a committee that is comprised of the brotherhood of mankind that looks at all of God's children on a committee that would change the language and be responsible to the diocese. So in that light, I would recommend against this amendment, but looking at appointing a committee for the Episcopal Diocese of those the bishop would appoint to be a part of changing this language that represents all of the diocese.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. We can hear at this point in the proceedings, you can correctly speak against the amendment, the proposed amendment, which you have done, but it's not in order to propose any new action. So you've made your point against the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The front microphone.
My name's Jim Steed. I'm from St. Mark's, Capitol
Just a little bit
Hill.
louder, sir, closer to the mic. A little closer to the mic so people can hear you.
My name is Jim Steed. I'm from St. Mark's, Capitol Hill. In support of the amendment, I'd just like to point out two things. One is that the prayer book, marvelous instrument of grace that it is not of divine composition. The other is that even the great medieval doctors would have agreed that God does not have sexuality. It is not an attribute of the divine nature. As they used to say, God hath neither parts nor passions. I think we should vote in favor of this amendment.
Thank you, sir. I see someone coming toward the back microphone.
Paul Brewster, St. Albans. I have a problem with the word non-binary. I think the intent of the amendment is excellent, except I think it's an awkward word. I would suggest some word like universalist or some other word.
Are you making an amendment?
I'm saying
not
I'm
really?
opposed.
Okay.
I'm opposed to the
Got it.
amendment as written,
Thank you.
and I would like to recommend a change to an amendment to the amendment.
Okay, an amendment, we can take a second degree amendment, but you'll have to bring that in writing over to the table.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. So we have a little bit of a break. Just a second, we need to wait while this is being tended to. Over there.
During this brief break, a brief announcement. The following person should report to the Diocese of Jerusalem table for some good news. Chuck Smith, Rob Brown, Kathleen O'Neill, Janice Smith, and Thomasina Rogers. Thank you.
I think we are getting it up on the screen now. And the amendment to the amendment is replacing the term non-binary with the term, wait for it,
with a picture of us.
What could be better?
all right. Here we go. So we've removed non-binary imagery and it has been replaced with universal images.
Could we get Paul Brewster back to the microphone? So does this, what's on the screen, accurately reflect your proposed amendment to the amendment?
Yes, it does.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
we need a second.
We need a second to the amendment to the amendment. I see a hand, yes, a second. Okay, it is now on the floor for discussion. Front microphone, please.
Michelle Morgan, St. Mark's Episcopal Church, obviously. Non-binary is a very specific term that if the intentionality of this resolution is to invite transgendered people into our midst, non-binary is necessary for that to happen. So I would actually speak very strongly to remove the amendment to the amendment, and I'm wondering as a point of information if I can then call the question. Or
It's too soon.
too soon. Non-binary, not helpful though. Thank you.
Okay. David, did you want to speak? Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the amendment of the amendment? Yes. Front microphone. No. If you are in favor of the proposed amendment to the amendment, would you please raise your hand?
Just to clarify, what you will be voting in favor of is the language universal images, replacing non-binary imagery. If you vote yes, that's what you're voting yes for here.
Universal images to replace non-binary. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. The amendment to the amendment fails. So we are now back to the First Amendment to the resolution.
So let's wait a second and get that
get that
back
back
up
up
on the
again.
screen. Here we go.
Here we go. So is there any more discussion on the amendment? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your hand, please. The amendment to the resolution carries. We are now back to voting on the resolution as it has been amended. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no one approach the microphone, all those in favor of the resolution as it has been amended, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. If you are opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. The resolution as amended carries.
And how about a round of applause for the folks at the tech table?
Indeed. And I'd like you, as we're coming down to the home stretch here, friends, but I'd like you to hear yet another word from our presiding bishop.
Undoubtedly, you've heard of Oprah's Book Club. You know about the New York Times bestseller. But now Forward Movement is bringing to the Episcopal Church and all who would like to participate the Good Book Club. I remember when I was a little boy, people used to refer to the Bible as the Good Book. The Good Book Club is helping us to read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest the Holy Scriptures anew in our time for this, the 21st century. So beginning the Sunday before Ash Wednesday of next year, and then continuing through Pentecost Day, we are invited to read the Gospel of Luke and the book of the Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament. The Gospel of Luke is found in the section of the New Testament of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four Gospels. And the Acts of the Apostles follows right after the four Gospels. But the truth is, the scholars tell us, that the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts are part one and part two of the same story, probably by the same author. In fact, the Gospel tells the story of Jesus. It shares some of his teachings. It tells many of his parables. And it tells the way that Jesus lived among us as God present with us. And the Acts of the Apostles tells the story of those who followed in the footsteps of Jesus, following his teachings and living in the power of God's holy and life-giving Spirit. I hope you'll join me on the Sunday before Ash Wednesday, continuing through the day of Pentecost, and together, as the Episcopal Church, we will read the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles. God love you, God bless you, and you keep the faith.
One of the frustrations I hear often from lay delegates, especially or delegates to convention, is that it's frustrating not knowing how to bring back to your congregations what we discuss and the issues and the opportunities that are presented here. Which is why in the back of on your chair today, you were given a sheet that involves or describes some of the things that you can take back, concrete things you can take back to your communities, either in the areas of prayer, your faith-sharing cards, opportunities for congregational capacity, and striving for justice. That same sheet will also be up on the website on the front page with all of the links right there, so you can go to them or you can direct people to them as you feel moved. I now call upon the Secretary for a motion to set the date and place of our annual convention in 2019.
I move that the 124th annual meeting of the Convention of the Diocese of Washington be held at the Washington National. I move that the 124th meeting of the Convention of the Diocese of Washington be held at Washington National Cathedral on Saturday, January 26, 2019.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. Opposed? The motion carries. 2 brief meetings after we adjourn. The meeting of the General Convention alternates to the right of the platform at the conclusion of convention, and to the left of the platform there is a similarly brief meeting of the Standing Committee. Friends, we have completed the assigned work of this convention, and we have reached the end of our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? And is there a second? All in favor? Let's sing Joyful, Joyful as we stand and prepare to leave. Let us bless the Lord.
Thanks